The Department of Government Efficiency, or Doge, has made serious waves in Washington during its first 100 days. And let's just say it's been anything but boring. Originally, Doge was co-led by entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy and tech billionaire Elon Musk. But things shifted fast. Vivek stepped away early to run for governor of Ohio. And last week, Elon Musk announced he's dialing back his involvement to refocus on Tesla, which, by the way, saw its profits nosedive 71% this year. Also worth mentioning, his temporary gig as special government employee is almost up, with that 130-day clock ticking down. Now let's rewind for a second. President Trump handpicked Ramaswamy and Musk to spearhead Doge, and back in December, both were invited to Capitol Hill to explain the agency's mission to Republican lawmakers. Take a look.
There's a lot of interest and enthusiasm, certainly among Republicans, for an idea like this. The idea of cutting back the federal budget is not new and trying to find more efficient ways to do government. The challenge is that over and over again, generations of lawmakers have tried this and have come up short because it's significantly difficult to try to take any government agency with a significant budget and scale it back in a meaningful way. That's what they are trying to do anyway, which again is sparking a lot of interest, but still a lot of questions as to how exactly they're going to do it.
Now, neither Ramaswamy nor Musk had any prior government experience. But for many Republican lawmakers, including Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan, that was not a red flag. Instead, their outsider perspective and business savvy acumen were seen as big assets.
I think that's probably a positive because they're smart, successful individuals, and no one can argue with that. I mean, some of the most successful guys on the planet. I think they're going to bring that perspective, and I think the country is saying, yeah, we want that kind of approach, that fresh, new, outside approach coming in.
But most Democrats, and even some Republicans like former Trump communications director Anthony Scaramucci, disagree. They argue government should not run like a business, period.
Because it's not a business. Remember, for-profit entities have different motivations. The government is in the service of the American people, and the government's there to protect people. It's there to smooth out the edges of business cycles. It's there to provide a safety net for people that are indigent in the country and to provide levels of fairness and equal opportunity for people. And as a non-profit, it's more existential and it's more immortal. There's no company in the United States, as an example, that's been in the Dow Jones Industrial Average for the last 100 years.
Right.
And yet the government's 250 years old for a reason, because it's not run for profit. It's run for the service of the American people. And I think it's very dangerous to draw the analogy. When business executives say to me, we got to run the government
like a
business, I'm like, guys, it's not a business.
In the weeks after it launched, Doge moved fast, canceling several diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives across federal agencies, scrapping some consulting contracts, and shutting down leases for underused federal buildings. The agency also started working to consolidate duplicative programs and offices. But many of those moves hit roadblocks, delayed by legal setbacks and backlash in court and the court of public opinion. Since January 20th, dozens of federal lawsuits have been filed challenging Doge's actions.
The Trump administration's newly minted Department of Government Efficiency is already facing 3 lawsuits in federal court. Those lawsuits allege Doge, run by the richest man in the world, Elon Musk, as it's currently structured, violates federal transparency rules, specifically a 1972 law limiting the role of private citizens in government decision-making.
But lawsuits didn't slow down Musk and his team. From day one, Trump and Musk made it clear they wanted to dismantle government bureaucracy and root out what Trump calls rogue bureaucrats. The first major move, targeting tens of thousands of federal workers still in their probationary periods, people who had just been hired or recently promoted. In total, nearly 2 million government employees got what's being called a, quote, fork in the road email, laying out 2 options: resign voluntarily or risk having your position eliminated. And many of those who didn't take the offer were actually fired, including military veteran and former federal employee Derek Copeland.
They basically threw us out like a piece of trash, veterans included. That fork in the road email that was sent out, a lot of people say, well, why didn't you just take the fork in the road email? Everybody was given a severance package. That is absolutely false and is not true. That fork in the road email basically gave people the option, right, to either retire, resign, get out. But nowhere in that email did it ever say, hey, if you're on probationary status, I think it'd be in your best interest to take this offer, because if you don't and it expires, we're going to fire you. The way they went about this and the way they're currently going about this is cowardice. You know, I have this letter sitting right in front of me about my termination, you know, and it says the agency finds based on your performance that you have not demonstrated that your further employment at the agency would be in the public interest. You know, if you're going to fire people, have the grit and the gut to actually say why you're firing them. Don't be a coward. Say it to their face. Tell them why you're firing people. And the reason why is because I'm not saying that this is President Trump in terms of the mismanagement of government, because let's be clear. This thing has been mismanaged for probably since the inception of government, right? But let's be clear and let's not lie. And what this letter does to people is it prevents them from getting unemployment in certain states, because it literally says that your performance basically sucked. And so when an unemployment agency sees that, there's certain rules in certain states, they will not give you unemployment for that. And sure, you have the right to an appeal and you can present certain things to that state. But these are real people suffering right now with families that can't even afford to feed their kids and their families. You know, and I have all my performance reports. I even have letters of recommendations from my supervisor the day that I was fired, basically saying that my work is well above and beyond any standard that they could even set. How is somebody that doesn't meet a performance and not in the best interest of the public, how do I have all this information if this letter says that basically that my work sucks? Matter of fact, in my whole 20-year military career, my performance has never been a question.
Some of the firings were so sudden that agencies scrambled to rehire terminated staff, including at the Department of Energy's National Nuclear Security Administration, which oversees the country's nuclear weapons stockpile. In another Musk-driven move, federal employees were asked to send weekly emails to the Office of Personnel Management listing 5 things they accomplished that week. The request caused widespread confusion, with workers and cabinet officials getting mixed messages about whether they actually had to comply. Here's what Musk had to say about why Doge pushed for those emails specifically.
I think that email perhaps was misinterpreted as a performance review, but actually it was a pulse check review. Do you have a pulse?
Doge has slashed budgets across dozens of agencies, including national parks and community service programs. Thousands of health and human services employees were also laid off. A range of research grants were cut, and Doge even shuttered USAID. But in March, a federal judge ruled that Doge likely overstepped its authority in that case, calling the move unconstitutional. Elon Musk admits that Doge can get things wrong from time to time, but insists that the overall impact is more effective government.
We will make mistakes. We won't be perfect, but when we make a mistake, we'll fix it very quickly. So for example, with USAID, one of the things we accidentally canceled very briefly was Ebola, Ebola prevention. I think we all want Ebola prevention. So we restored the Ebola prevention immediately, and there was no interruption. But we do need to move quickly if we're to achieve a $1 trillion deficit reduction in financial year 2026. It requires saving $4 billion per day, every day, from now through the end of September.
Doge has also floated this idea of issuing stimulus checks, around $5,000 per person, using what they claim are savings generated by the department. But that payout, if it happens, is a ways off. Here's James Fishback, the architect behind what's being called the, quote, Doge dividend, speaking on Cuomo.
The Doge dividend check that President Trump endorsed today, that is going to help us get the $2 trillion, and here's why. We're going to incentivize everyday Americans, whether they're in East Palestine or in East Baltimore, to step up and say, there's waste, there's fraud, there's abuse in my community. Report it to Doge. Why? Because the more money the Doge saves, the bigger the Doge dividend check is. Chris, look at how successful Doge has been under Trump's leadership, with just Elon Musk and a dozen engineers eating Chick-fil-A and drinking Red Bull, sleeping in the office. Now imagine deputizing 100 million Americans to be the eyes and ears on the ground. When I was growing up, I took my grandfather, a World War II vet, to the VA for his checkups. And I got to tell you, I saw waste, I saw fraud, I saw abuse. I didn't have Doge to report it to, and I didn't have an incentive to report it. That's not the case with the Doge dividend. Every American can step up, report fraud and abuse to Doge directly via X, and we'll see the savings go up, hit $2 trillion, and we'll see the checks dispersed next summer. And absolutely, President Trump's name and signature should be on it, because this would not have been possible without his leadership.
According to the Doge website, the agency claims to have saved an estimated $160 billion. That's about $993.79 per taxpayer. But critics argue that those numbers are heavily inflated. It's also worth pointing out Musk's vision of Doge taking a chainsaw to government spending hasn't really gone as planned. The original savings goal was $2 trillion. That got lowered to $1 trillion and then dropped again to $150 billion, less than a tenth of what was first promised. And even that may be hard to hit, especially because Trump insists on protecting programs like Social Security and Medicare, which make up a massive chunk of the federal budget. Trump, however, seems pleased with the whole thing. In a recent interview with Time magazine, he called Doge a, quote, very big success. Just a reminder, Doge is a temporary agency based in the White House tasked with carrying out its mission until July 4th, 2026. That's only about a year away. So far, over 100,000 federal workers have been fired or took buyouts to leave civil service. That number could shift depending on how these lawsuits turn out. And if Doge hits its workforce reduction, nearly 10% of the 2.5 million federal workforce will be gone by the end of the fiscal year. Bottom line, it's still too early to tell what the long-term impact of Doge will be, but one thing is super clear. It's already reshaping federal government.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.